First Person is produced in cooperation with the Far East Broadcasting Company, who rejoice in the stories of changed lives through the power of Jesus Christ. Learn more at febc.org.
What I do is I become like an expert in how to help people discover for themselves the things that God has already put in them. I'm always looking for what is God inviting them into, and then how can they respond to what He's inviting them into.
Coming up now on First Person, we'll meet a one-time professional actor who has now been called to a ministry of training people to be equipped to coach others in spiritual formation. We'll meet Ben Olsen in just a moment. Welcome to this week's edition of First Person. I'm Wayne Shepherd, inviting you to visit firstpersoninterview.com for an archive of past interviews. There's much value in learning from each other's stories, and we enjoy bringing them to you. So go online to firstpersoninterview.com and browse the personal testimonies you'll find there that always honor God as the author of our story. Another convenient way to listen is to subscribe to the First Person podcast. You'll find us just about anywhere podcasts are found. Subscribe and never miss an episode. Ben Olsen is the program director at the Global Center for Coaching, a Christian program for the training and development of people who can then become agents of spiritual transformation in others. But Ben started out his life in a slightly different direction.
My journey with God has felt sometimes a little bit like a roller coaster of excitement, I suppose. And from an early age, my parents were very involved in home groups and house church, those kind of things. So I grew up really experiencing like practical application and a group dynamic, and really that whole idea of everybody having something that they bring to the table.
I see.
And everybody has a part to play. And so that was really my experience, was watching everybody bring something to the table of value, and everybody be valued as a part of the whole. And that's kind of my initial experience with church, with God, with seeing God move in people's lives, everybody being a part of the body, that body kind of idea.
I see. When did you place your faith in Christ? As a young boy then?
Yeah, at a young age. You bet. When I was 10 is when I was baptized, and but I think that God had just revealed Himself to me, just from a very early age. And then it was one of those things where, now is the time to step forth and to own it, and submit to God's leading. But I've had some stumbles along the way.
Yeah, I was going to say, it wasn't a straight line, was it, to where you are now?
No, not at all. Not at all. Yeah. In my teens, there were some things that happened in terms of us moving, lots of change in my life, and I just began to drift and kind of lost sight of who I was, really searching for what value I had, what I had to bring to the table, and I looked in lots of different directions. Well, at a young age, I actually, when we were part of a church, I got involved with the church's theater group. We had a playwright in our church, and so he wrote lots of wonderful Christian plays, and I became a part of that, and really enjoyed being a part of that acting process, and being, again, with people and everybody bringing their unique gifts and talents to the table. I later got on a Christian television show, and so that was a part of my journey, was performing, following that, the theatrical bent. But that also was a part of me drifting away.
Okay. Did you pursue that then professionally?
I did. Yeah, I did. I went to New York, to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts.
That's
time there.
That's a strong pursuit of acting right there. That's pretty serious.
Yeah, about 16 years since I was young, and then through all the way to New York. Spent 6 years in New York as an actor, primarily theater, primarily Shakespeare. But that was too where I just lost sight of who I was and drifted. And for me, I really identify with that idea of the prodigal. And there was a point where it was just very clear for me that that God was not going to allow me to stay on the fence anymore.
Okay.
And yeah, at some point in that journey, I really felt clearly God say to me, "You either choose for me or against me, but
Mm-hmm.
choose."
Mm-hmm.
And that was the start of me, coming right back to God.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my prodigal moment of in the muck and
Yeah.
a real revelation of where I was and where I did not want to be.
Yeah.
And then and that was a journey of me coming back.
Well, later I want to talk about how maybe that contributed to what you're doing now in terms of helping people. But you acknowledge that, I mean, there are Christians in the theater arts, right? I mean, it's a vocation that can be done as believers.
For sure. And I know lots of Christians who are in the performing arts, and I mean, God is a creative God.
Mm-hmm.
From the very beginning, He demonstrates, "Hey, I'm a God of creativity." And so, I think as Christians, well, we should probably be at the forefront of of the creative arts, right? Because we have that
Absolutely.
God DNA in us.
Right. Yeah.
So there are so many artists out there, actors, musicians who just have an incredible gifting for
Mm-hmm.
the arts.
Mm-hmm.
And God did not take that away from me. God redeemed a lot of that and showed me in some significant way what it was like to be a part of a body where everybody was coming and bringing their excellence. That's the one thing I loved and sometimes miss about theater,
Mm-hmm.
is just showing up on stage with people and knowing that they are bringing the best of who they are with all of their excellence to the table. And then there's a collaborative process where we all just bring our best, and then we get to experiment and have fun
Yeah.
and try things out. And for me, that is the kind of church experience that I want.
That's a great connection. I appreciate you sharing that. I'm curious if you've retained any of those Shakespearean lines at all.
Yeah, actually, sometimes I use in my current role as a coach, I'm often referencing Shakespeare and some of the things I just recently was referencing with another student the idea from Hamlet of us holding a mirror up to people or a mirror up to their nature
Right.
and showing virtue its own feature. And so we get to, as Christians and as believers and equippers, we get to sometimes hold up that mirror to people to help them to see where they're at and to see the things that God has gifted them with and their creativity and help them to reckon with who they are in Christ.
You may be the first person I've talked to who's tried to use Shakespeare as some spiritual illustrations in people's lives. But that's interesting. It really is.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I find God is often using all of the things that we've gone through in our life and helping us to make those kinds of links. And for me, that's just some unique things that God has allowed me to do is to see, to see some of the things that I've experienced in new and different ways, and to see them from a different perspective.
Right. But you felt clearly that God was calling you to something different out of the theater. What was that transition like? Was that a hard transition for you to make, a spiritual transition?
Yeah, it was at some point when I came back to God and had a real incredible encounter with God. I gave up and gave over all of the things that for me felt like they were important, all of my pursuits. And I had a conversation with God where I said, "Okay, God, I'm going to let this go, the acting, the theater thing, and you're going to have to, if you ever want me to pick this up again, you're going to have to clearly come and tell me." And funny enough, within a couple of months,
Be careful what you pray about, huh?
right? The church I was going to had a school, and they had, as a part of that, some theater classes. And the director of the school came and found me and said, "I heard that you had a theater background, and we're looking for a theater teacher. And would you be interested?" And it very clearly felt to me like, a little
Yeah.
chuckle from God, like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah,
Is
here we go.
is
He
this
wanted me
God's
to have.
leading, or is it temptation to go step back?
Yeah, it seemed very clear that God was actually going to use that and
Good.
redeem that. And I
Good.
got to teach theater from a Christian perspective with students in a Christian school. And that really was a part of my redemptive journey as well.
We're meeting Ben Olsen of the Global Center for Coaching on this edition of First Person, and we'll continue in just a moment.
As we take a brief pause here on First Person, let me bring your attention to a video celebrating the 80th anniversary of the Far East Broadcasting Company. I'm Ed Cannon of FEBC, and in the wake of World War II, 3 Christians reimagined the Great Commission. The world was broken, nations were rebuilding, yet these men were full of hope. Their vision led to the founding of the Far East Broadcasting Company, and while technology has changed, the message was never changed. To view the 80th anniversary video, please join us online at febc.org.
We're talking with Ben Olsen. Ben is the owner, director of education for something called the Global Center for Coaching. A mutual friend has introduced us, and I found his story to be fascinating, so I wanted to tell it on First Person this week. And you'll learn more about the Global Center by going to our program notes at firstpersoninterview.com. You'll find more information there because I'm sure there's questions you have that I won't think of here in the next few minutes. But all right, pick up your story, Ben, if you would. And how did this end up into a career of coaching and of teaching other people how to life coach?
My parents have been in ministry for many, many years, and were a part of what they were doing was offering a seminar that was kind of a personal growth, inner healing, biblical-based seminar. And I was invited to be a part of that. And for me, I really caught the heart for engaging people where they are and inviting them into what God had for them. And so part of that seminar, some other things that God opened the door for in my life. But for, I would say, the past 25, 26 years, God has opened the door for me to be in kind of the helps professions. And so that's looked like lots of different things. I've worked in addictions recovery, for rescue missions, for other organizations. I've worked for wilderness therapy programs and Christian wilderness programs. I've worked in a pastoral counseling role and other roles, but all of those things have had one core thing in common. It really has been meeting with people and encouraging them to step into what God had for them, to help them to see who God had created them to be. And after several years of doing these kinds of things, and being on this wild adventure with God, where a new thing would open up, and I'd say, "Oh no, what can I do it? Do I have what it takes?" And then God would equip me to do the thing in front of me. But I had lots of friends who said, "Oh, what you're doing basically sounds like counseling, and why don't you just go ahead and go back to school and get your counseling degree? That's what you've been kind of doing. Just go for it." And so I went to Western Seminary there in the Pacific Northwest, and we were living there. I was working for a rescue mission there. And I went to Western Seminary to their counseling program and got about halfway through the program and found a coaching class that they had. And when I took that coaching class, within the first maybe hour of the class, I recognized, oh, this is what I've been doing for
That
the
quickly,
past
huh?
15, 16 years. And I never had verbiage for it. People would ask me, oh, what do you kind of do? And I would say, well, I kind of do, it's kind of like this, or it's kind of like that. And by the time I was done, I felt, kind of foolish, like, wow, I can't even explain what I do. But when I found coaching, I was like, this is it. This is the word for what it is that I do and the approach that I love and what God has given me, I think, a gifting for.
Mm-hmm.
And when I found the program, I immediately dropped counseling and went all into coaching, and was fortunate enough to be, with some people there who invited me into the process of teaching. And then later I took over the program, and now most recently this past year, took on the program out from under Western Seminary as its own entity. Is a little bit like a church plant where they, put their hand on my head and blessed me and said, "Go forth." And so we still have a connection with Western Seminary, but now we're our own entity. And really, this has been an answer to a prayer or even a thing, a desire that God put in my heart over 10, 15 years ago, to be equipping people to be in a place where I'm teaching and facilitating people who want to grow in their ability to connect with others and help encourage others to take steps, equipping the saints.
It's exciting to see how God has led you and provided for you, Ben. It may be obvious to some, but let's talk about the distinction between counseling and coaching. I mean, you resonated with coaching as soon as you saw someone else define it for you, and you knew it was what you love to do. So what is the difference?
Well, one of the primary differences that caused me to make the shift was, I didn't want to work with insurance. I didn't want to diagnose people, and those are some significant things that
Sure.
often happen in counseling. But I have a good friend who says there's no rear view mirror in coaching, and so coaching is a present and future helps. And so what's going on right now in your life, and where do you want to go with that? Counseling tends to look back at, where this came from and what, kind of unresolved wounds or things are there.
Yeah.
Sometimes even pathology or things that might need some diagnosis. But coaching is more of a forward-moving focus. There are even some modalities in counseling that seem very much like coaching. They're very present and forward-moving, very action-oriented kind of modalities. Those actually tend to be in counseling the ones that work the best.
Yeah.
And so, I think the primary difference too in coaching and almost every other helps profession is that in coaching, we look at the client as the expert of their life. They're the ones who are going to be in charge of where they want to go. And in almost every other helps, you look at the helper as the expert. I think the default is you go in and you say, "Okay, here's all my stuff, and now you tell me what to do, and you help me fix it."
Well, that's very interesting indeed. And of course, you do this in a Christian context, but counseling and coaching can both be a spiritual exercise and should be a spiritual exercise, right?
For sure. And there are so many helps, right? Not just counselors, but mentors and spiritual directors and pastoral counseling and consulting and there are all kinds of helps. And I think it would be great if somebody had all those helps in their life and were able to kind of tap in like the body, right? That where everybody played a unique role. And there is a biblical way to approach any number of these helps. And we, in our training, we look at, my belief is that everything that works in coaching works because there's a biblical principle underneath it.
Interesting.
And so what we try to do is just surface the biblical principle that's at play that's making this work.
Right. So tell me then about this this going separate from Western Seminary and starting the Global Center for Coaching, you call it, Global Center for Coaching. And what's all involved? You have courses. Who are you reaching out to?
Yeah, we are an online training program. We're a certified program. We if you do training with us, you get a certificate in coaching. And we are accredited by a couple different organizations, the International Coaching Federation, they're a global organization. We're also accredited by Christian Coaches Network International. And so if you are interested in getting a credential, a professional credential as a coach, you could get that from either of those organizations. And I would say we train about half the people in our program are maybe second, third careering, or they're looking to add coaching as maybe an income stream for them. And then I would say the other half are people who are in current roles and they're looking to use coaching tools and skills to enhance their current role.
Sharpen their tools, huh? Yeah.
You bet.
So is this for the layman? I mean, if someone feels like, I think maybe as I look back, I've been coaching, I've been mentoring for years now. Maybe I need more input in how to do it even better.
Yeah, Wayne, that's a great question because that's in some sense where I was. It's like, oh, I'm doing this thing, and now that I found it's an actual profession, oh yeah, there are some real skills here that I could use and hone. And I think this is for anyone. The thing about coaching skills is they translate into every relationship, and they just make every relationship better.
Mm-hmm.
We have lots of students who, after the first class they take, will come back and report, oh, my relationship with my kid is going well, or there's some significant shift that's happening because I'm using these skills, or my spouse is saying there's something different that's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And so these skills can translate relationally into any, relational setting, but they also can be used professionally.
Yeah. So it doesn't work just in business per se. It works on a family level as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the most common thing for people when they think about coaches in this way is to think about executive coaching or leadership coaching or coaching within an organization. But nowadays, I would say over the past 15 years, coaching is moving into almost every area of people's lives. And, I find people who are using coaching and seeking coaching in lots of different areas. There's so many niches now, too, around coaching. But coaching can be used in any context.
Mm-hmm. Must be very rewarding to come alongside someone and just help them discover what God has for them. Isn't that what it's all about? You don't tell them what to do.
Right.
You're helping them discover what God has for them.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it, is the pressure isn't on me. And there's freedom in taking a coach approach because I don't have to solve for people. I don't have to have the answers. What I do is I become like an expert in how to help people to process and to think through, and I draw out and I help them discover for themselves the things that God has already put in them. I'm always looking for what is God inviting them into, and then how can they respond to what he's inviting them into.
Mm-hmm.
My core belief is if God's inviting us, he's also equipping us because he sets us up for success. And so I'm constantly looking and listening for how has God equipped them to respond to whatever it is he's inviting them into. And now I become more of a witness. And when I see it, I can encourage it and we can explore it together. But the pressure isn't on me. It really is between them and God.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I tell my students, we're not a Moses in the middle. We're not hearing for them. We are just witnessing their response to God and helping them have a good conversation with themselves to address things that need to be addressed in order for them to move into what they want to move into.
I'm glad we had a chance to meet Ben Olsen today and learn his personal story of calling, as well as how God is using the Global Center for Coaching to equip others to serve Christ. For more about this organization, please find links to follow at firstpersoninterview.com. There at the website, you can also re-listen or share this interview with others. First Person shares a news story each week, and I invite you to join us on radio as well as online to listen anytime. These conversations are made possible by the Far East Broadcasting Company, who have great stories to tell of God moving in the hearts of people all over the world. Using radio as well as social media, FEBC is reaching a whole new generation of people, many who have never heard the gospel before. I host a podcast with Ed Cannon called Until All Have Heard, and I invite you to listen at febc.org or with any podcast app. Now, with thanks to my friend and producer Joe Carlson, I'm Wayne Shepherd. Thanks for listening to First Person.